It's oysters. I know. An oyster story isn't a rarity, but mine is two-tiered, maybe treble-tiered, but let's try and keep it contained to a double meaning. And I am sitting here with two oysters tattooed on my body, one on each forearm, so there's conviction behind this cause. I'm talking the taste zap of the oyster on the tongue, plus the flavour flume of them skidding down the throat chute. In fact, the very sight of them has transformational qualities for me. A sloppy, sea-salty TARDIS in every iridescent shell. In the Scotland of old, oysters enjoyed a long run as the food of paupers, essential vitamins to working-class coastal communities. And sure, they've been rebranded now as the toff scoff of the upper classes, but in the right hands, the right oyster shucker or oyster shack, the day of the £1 mollusk bringing folk together is still soaring. Plus, they clean the water they live in, improving the ecosystem they inhabit. They're biogenic like eggs or spider silk, and they are sexy in their weird alien messiness. I've long given up on meat, but my love of the oyster remains strong. The first tranche of this story starts in France. I was on residency in a place called Grèze-sur-Loing, near the Fontainebleau region. Stunner of a spot. Lucky little stargazer. I'd won the Robert Louis Stevenson Fellowship, so got to swan around this ancient village for a full month, pretending to be a fancy ribboned writer. Hotel Chivignon, where I was staying, to me resembled a small castle or chateau, though it was better known as a French inn that hosted years of scandalous bohemian merriment in the past. See, the reason I was actually here is because Robert Louis Stevenson had spent some of his youth in this place. Not too far from Paris, in RLS's day, Grèze housed a commune of artists, with heaps of painters, musicians and writers shirking the capital to spend time in the countryside. RLS was particularly keen on Grèze, as it's where he met his wife-to-be, an American painter by the name of Fanny Osborne, though she was still married at the time. So there's not only literary lustre in the air, but that lusty, lilted love stuff. I was beaming from it. And at this point in my life, this was the swankiest literary award I'd been given, so I felt like I was on the cusp of a new life. As it happens, I was also on the cusp of a new relationship, so of course, I invited her over to spend a decadent weekend with me in my castle/inn/chateau. And of course, I offered to meet her in Paris for the night before whisking her off to the sticks. I'm chuffed to the cherries to say that she accepted too. So I booked a room in a trendy Paris hotel with a bed that was suspended from the ceiling, and I took her out for champagne and oysters because it's the city of love. And the RLS fellowship came with some cash, and what better way to spend it? I was keen as mustard to impress, so ordered some fine fizzy stuff and a 12-deck of their best oysters. They came fast, and they were soon splayed over the table, glistening like little gooey jewels from the bottom of the sea. Cliched, I know, but cliched for a reason. Problem is, I'd overlooked one essential factor of this equation. This being the fact, my lovely dinner companion is a lifelong vegetarian. Something she'd mentioned on a couple of occasions now. So I'm thinking the sight of me slurping back these oysters that I was already drooling over was going to be a far fling from the aphrodisiac I was hoping for. Caught in a quandary, with a raised oyster shell literally in my hand, I began to go beetroot. Then, out of nowhere, out of left field, my dinner companion pulled a blinder. She said, "You know what? I'll tongue that oyster in its shell and sip back some of the seawater as a gesture of good faith in where I think this relationship is going." And I thought, treacle me to toffee. That's the most romantic thing I have ever heard. So I gobbled back the full platter solo as she chomped away at the bread basket, and the taste of those Paris oysters, especially the one my oyster liquor tongued, has never left me. An already celebratory food became all the more celebratory, so much so that the tastes of any oyster discoing in my mouth time travels me back, right there. But there's more. A poem about the story of this cookie date night, funnily enough called Oyster, became the title of my next poetry collection. And not only that, I convinced one of my best friends, favourite singers and favourite artists, Scott Hutchison, to illustrate the book. And when it launched, we toured it all over the UK and South Africa, celebrating love and oysters as we went. There were oyster platter photo shoots and oyster pop-ups at the shows, and a pre-show oyster ritual if time was on our side. As to how the oysters ended up tattooed on my arms, well, it was a pact with Scott, and something he reminded me of on the last meal we had together before he left this spinning planet. Yes, it was a seafood platter. So, of course, I got my tattoo, and then I got his. And now I have reason to celebrate and reminisce about oysters all the more. I guess I always will. Good luck out there. Raise a shell for me.